to hold pads. Almost.
Welcome to a little bit of R&R, episode 4. We're starting with technical difficulties because of last time and the wonderful echo. But this time we did a preview, and we're quiet. So you guys are going to turn us up a little bit. We're working on it. I need like an under construction sign.
No kidding. That might be our logo.
At this point, honestly.
Men working.
So found one I like. I've heard of too, called XSplit, which I'm more confident is going to give us some good options. So we'll give that a test drive and see how it goes. But
Sweet.
Today you're going to have to turn us up.
Turn it up.
Oh man, how are you doing, Dad?
I am doing great. The bookcase. I sent you a video. I got it. It's literally like 98, 99% complete. I got cleanup to do and some, other stuff. But thank God, I literally been working on it since July.
Oh my God.
I was still a full-time employee at that point, so obviously I was doing it at nights and on the weekends. And then in November I retired, so I was able to dedicate a whole lot more time. But obviously we had the holidays and all that. So, but I did get to watch almost all the games this weekend, which was good because they were on regular TV and my. Not streaming on Peacock.
That's still one of the. You know who surprised me actually was Kurt Warner, and he was just stating
he was not happy.
Well, he wasn't, but he was also just stating the fact that, like, listen, everybody else does this with their big events.
Yes.
They try to.
Yes.
So of course
I mean, even back when you were a WWE guy, you had to pay to see the WWE, right? You hope so, or the big fights. If you
correct.
This is when you were really young. The neighbor down the street got one of the big fights. I don't remember who it was. It was probably Tyson and somebody, which I don't know why you'd pay $50 for a Tyson fight that lasted about 22 seconds, and he'd knock the dude completely out, right? But that being said, the NFL has tried every which way to Sunday to make more money out of what they got, right?
So, well, and they're doing to me even a thing that I can't stand is. So I talked to you about getting the all 22 video, where basically you get all the camera angles, you can rewind. It's coach tape, really.
Yeah.
What they've started doing is they've started uploading all of it to YouTube, and then auto copyright claiming anybody who's using it to break down film. Which is just like, guys, come on.
Well, you got to wonder. Okay, so I get it. I was part of corporate America for 40 some odd years, and and I've seen marketing that you just went, what, right? I'll go throwback way back when I was a kid. I grew up in Pacific Northwest. Our regional beer, we had two of them, Rainier Beer and Olympia. Rainier Beer, and I don't know who their ad agency was. I'd love to find out. Had the best ads on the planet. They were the first with the frogs, if you remember when Budweiser.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm assuming Budweiser after. I don't remember if Rainier sold to Bud. Rainier sold to somebody, and all of a sudden Budweiser was using it. But so I'll give you an example. So here's a shot of like a country road, middle of nowhere, and you hear this Rainier Beer. And it would shoot off into the right-hand side, and the background would be the Mount Rainier, right? Because there's plenty of valleys leading up to Mount Rainier that they could have pulled that off. They used to do people dressed up in literally bottles of beer costumes, and we're out hunting the wild Rainiers. Oh, Dad, look, there's a herd, and he goes, well, son, they normally travel in 6-packs. Anyway, they were the best ads. I still remember them. Okay, let's see. 50 years later, I'm still remembering the ads.
That is a hilarious
to me,
line.
that's marketing. I'll give you another one. And Apple used to be the master at this. When the Niners were in the Super Bowl at Stanford Stadium, which was a sorry, Stanford, didn't mean to trash, but no backs on the seats. It was unbelievable. So Apple gave everybody one of those square pillows for your Annie with the Mac logo on it. So every time they showed the crowd, somebody's holding up a Mac seat. So literally they got hours of
Free advertising.
I mean, what was it? $1 a seat?
Yeah.
I mean, you just give them away. You're probably giving them away anyway.
Right.
It's so those to me are those marketing geniuses. And then you have, and I won't even go into all the ones that were just you and I just go, are you here? So you know my favorite ad, right, Rob or Russ? My favorite ad is the Geico Camel.
Yeah.
Guess what day it is? Hump day. Yeah.
Yes.
It's my favorite commercial. I actually play it on my computer on Wednesdays, for example, right? Super simple, silly camel. Anyway, and then you get all these others that are just horrendous. So in my opinion, the NFL has a product that sells itself.
Yeah.
It is numero uno, right? Basketball thought they were number one. They are not number one, right? In fact, there was a great video. I was going to send it to you and I forgot about the absolute collapse of the viewership on the NBA, and it could have been. BLM, who could, everybody wants to come up with the reasons, but the facts are their mid-season tournament was only 4% above last year's average day game.
Yeah.
I mean, you're expecting, because I put a bunch of money into it. So here you are, the NFL, and almost to me, they just try to make sure they don't mess it up.
You say that, but.
No, but you're playing defense now. You're not actually marketing your product. In fact, you know who markets the product? The people that hire the Mahomes. One of the best commercials ever, and I don't know if you remember it. You remember the commercials that Toyota did with Steve Young?
Yeah, where he's waving and his thing's on top of his car.
And he's got the plant or the food on the top. It's literally some of the best self-deprecating humor. The other one is Peyton Manning when he's all funny and anyway. Those to me are not the NFL.
No.
They're anyway. So,
considering
just everybody, I'm retroing today with Sean Alexander, just FYI, and I have a championship cap that's literally from 2020 or 2013.
But I was telling him it was actually hilarious. He had it on because LaShawn McCoy. They're talking obviously Purdy, and it's been a weird week for national media. And he had mentioned Sean Alexander, not anybody, no one outside of you and I. Probably even remembers he played, but he was amazing.
He was unbelievable.
He was unstoppable, but it was only for like 3-4 years, and then it's like, okay, bye.
It's not like Adrian Peterson, who had a long career, or Emmitt Smith, long career, right? But Sean Alexander. Well, here's the two things. Sean Alexander, as somebody who was in Seattle, was just like the Walter Payton Award winner type individual. The stuff he did in the community, the teammate that he was, and how hard he ran, right? And there's lots of those guys in the NFL. I mean, if you're a local guy in Green Bay, you can name 3 of those guys. If you're a local guy in Buffalo, you're going to name 3 of those guys. So I'm not saying Sean is the only guy ever. But, that kind of individual just, I thought you wanted those kind of people running, being in your business, which is the NFL. So anyway, I thought I'd be retro and honor my Hawks because it doesn't sound like they're hiring Dan Quinn. So I'm going to celebrate.
Yeah, you know what?
Sounds like they're going for an offensive coordinator, and I don't even care who they get. I just don't want him to be a defense guy.
Well, and that's going to be interesting. I'm kind of curious. There hasn't been nearly the movement that I thought.
Yeah,
Harbaugh's still kind of like second, third, fourth, fifth interview.
I don't know what they're doing. It's just anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting.
They're slow playing the whole thing, and you and I were trying to compare. I thought, and I'd have to go back, and it's really hard even with Google because you try to go back 10. If you look up something now that you knew was happening 10 years ago, it will pick the latest, greatest, and you'll have to weed through 37 pages to get back 10 years ago, right? Because it's just Google, and they have 6 billion data points, right? But anyway, I would love to go back and see when the no tamper would be taken off during the playoffs, because I thought it was literally almost until your team was out of it, right? Instead of it being the divisional playoff, the 22nd of January, I think is what it is now. But I thought for sure it's almost like the push rule that we were talking about, right? Back in the day, you couldn't push. You got out went the flag, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so it just seems they're all being very cautious. It's almost like I want to see what Russ does before I see what Rob does, right? Let's see who does Atlanta pick, right? I mean, the whole Belichick thing, right?
Well, it looks like they just tweaked the rule. I'm seeing some.
Exactly. It used to even be you could, quote unquote, tamper ahead of that. But I mean, remember, people have been fined and they had to give away draft picks, and it's like, oof. So anyway.
You know what's bothering me though is, and I wish more reporters did this, is give me what it was before, like the history. Because first, you can't interview a head coaching candidate employed by another team till the third day after the conclusion of Week 18. Obviously, this applies really to assistant coaches.
Right.
No in-person interviews are permitted with candidates who are employed by other teams until after all the wild card. But none of this talks about the history, to your point, of like when it used to be. Because I agree with you. I think it used to be.
Yeah, man.
You could just go ham.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I don't want to speak as if I knew, because I just remember it being way different. And I think it's changed more than once, which wouldn't surprise me, right? Wouldn't surprise me. I've been watching football since I was like 5, which was 1965.
Well, I don't think this is a hot take. I don't think, anyway. Doesn't it feel like this is the weakest the NFL's been in a while? Because if you look under the top teams, there are so many teams who are 500 and below.
Yeah.
And I get it. AFC just got wrecked by injuries. But that was supposed to be kind of, the gauntlet.
I still think, you and I will certainly talk about it on if the Niners beat Detroit, and I think whoever comes out of Ravens Chiefs is going to be the favorite.
Yeah.
I
love my Niners.
The Niners
good Lord.
could stand on their head and literally be 45-10, and I guarantee you Ravens or Chiefs are and it's all quarterback.
100%. Well, and let's face it, and this is nothing. This kind of ties a little bit in the national media. When people are like, "Hey, we can't put Purdy in the conversation with Josh Allen or Mahomes," correct.
Sure. Okay.
Lamar's a 2-time MVP. Mahomes is a 2-time Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
Josh Allen is. I mean, Rob and I kind of got into it a little bit. He does think he's good, but Rob has a little bit, in my opinion, and I get he's not here, but when we talked, it's a little bit of that. He gets compared to Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning is Robbie's favorite player. Well, so there's a little bit of that,
and Peyton Manning has a whole book, and Josh Allen has 3 pages. Let's slow the roll. It's like I was seeing memes coming where they were comparing Purdy to Joe, and I'm like, I love Brock Purdy. Right. I'm a huge supporter. I think he's getting both the way too good and the way too bad. Right.
100%.
By the way, all quarterbacks get that. He isn't unique there, right? I guarantee you, as soon as 2 years in, if Brady threw 3 picks, he was a dog, and they need to go get a number 1 draft pick, right? But all that being said, if you look at to your point about Mahomes, right? In the biggest games, the guy has literally delivered, right? Yeah. Last year, I don't care about the penalty and all that, right? I get it. Look, the guy didn't score last year. The Eagles were there supposedly on their defense and couldn't stop the guy once.
Correct.
Right? And I just, like, we were talking about who do we think, and I don't want to jump there yet, but when we're talking about Ravens Chiefs, and I'm just like, there are those who go, hey, I'm not betting against Lamar. And I'm thinking, well, one, I'm not a betting guy anyway. I ain't betting against Mahomes.
Yeah.
It's not. Oof. I've seen the guy play. I mean, look, so real quick, let's go over some of the games, and I want to give you a couple comparisons that I did while I was fiddly farting around. So if we go to Houston, Baltimore, but we back up one game, right? So Houston, Cleveland. C.J. Stroud was 76%, and he was 274 yards and 3 TDs. Could the kid have played any better against Cleveland? Not a chance. After you and I talked, and it was the road defense obviously showed up in Houston.
Real quick, and he could have done this, and the guy would have been open.
Anyway, so they had their number. But fast forward. Now he's against the Ravens. Same kid, right? 57.5%. He was 19 for 33. He chucked it 12 more times and for 100 less yards, 175, 0 TDs. Right? And you look at Lamar, nice easy day, 72.5%. He only threw it 22 times, 152 yards, 2 TDs.
Does it have his rushing?
Pretty rushing yards, 100 yards with 11 carries, 2 TDs. So he accounted for, I don't know how much, 262 yards all by himself, basically.
Because you know what blew my mind? And this software. Oh my God, I'm so happy to switch. Oh, I can't wait to switch. Hold on, I'm trying to select the stupid camera.
Let us pause a moment and we wait for Russ to
Oh, this software is going in the garbage.
Yeah, so, but I mean, a very pedestrian, and 34 points, right?
Well, hold on. Sorry, on the thought.
Yeah.
So what blew my mind and why I don't think Lamar gets the credit he honestly deserves is he was so surgical. He was so very pick my spots.
It was like practice squad.
I don't think. So the problem with Lamar is he makes the incredible look really mundane.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden you're like, well, obviously you should run. But he saw his opportunity, ran for 30 yards, and his play caller actually did a fantastic job. The play calls were great, really in tune with his quarterback. But to me, when people are like Lamar's 1 and 3, what I realized, and I got called out by Ravens fans kind of on Twitter, and they were right. He actually is a great pass first, run second quarterback.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And doesn't get the credit he deserves for that.
He just because he looks great running, whereas Josh Allen looks a little bit like the Michigan guy, but he still gets the yards, right? By the way, he loves to run, and unfortunately, someone's going to clean his clock one of these days and just take the 15.
He's like a runaway train. There's not going to be juice.
Well, because he is a big guy, but when he runs into the strong safety, and the guy takes him literally into next week.
You know what he reminds me of? You know those videos of giant trucks on ice where they can't maneuver?
Yeah. Like they're going down the street slowly.
Yeah, you can't slow them down. They're just going to keep going. Yeah. But it's not
like the garbage
fancy.
truck that's out of control.
Yes, that's him. That's 100% him.
So my point being, CJ's great when he hit a real defense, not Cleveland. He was not good.
Well, and to back that up, I'd heard a ton of crap about Purdy and Shanahan, and I didn't hear nearly enough of, no, this defense and this coordinator is actually really, really good. They're really good.
Yeah.
They're really good. Yep. So what I noticed, especially national media, is everybody just talked quarterbacks. It's like, give credit. The other guys get paid too.
So then move to Green Bay, Dallas, which we saw Jordan Love look like the second coming of Bart Starr, right? I mean, he was 16 of 21 for 76%, 272 yards and 3 TDs against Dallas, the vaunted Dallas defense.
Right.
Fast forward a week against the Niners, where everybody said he played so much better than Purdy. That's what everybody said. The stats don't say that. He threw for 34 times and only completed 60% or 61% of his passes, 2 TDs and 2 picks, right? Purdy, on the other hand, was 23 for 39 with no picks, game-winning TD, and 252 yards. Now, his percentage was under 60%, right? He chucked 39 attempts is a lot for Purdy if you look through the year.
Right.
But,
which was weird. In the rain, we're going to throw it 40 times.
By the way, though, he averaged per game this year 267 yards. He had 252. So, look, by the way, I will go back to the Niners a sec. I wanted to continue this comparison.
Go for it.
It's kind of fun. So if you go to the Buccaneers, right, and you look at Mayfield against who'd they play before they beat
Eagles.
Eagles, right. So against the Eagles, he was just okay, 61%, but he threw 3 TDs for 337 yards. So he tossed it all over the yard, right? But he had 36 attempts, right?
Yeah.
So, and also Detroit against LA. Jared Goff, right? 22 of 27, 80%, 81% accuracy against LA. 277 with one TD, right? So he had some pretty good stats. So now you put them against each other, right? Baker Mayfield threw it 41 times. And only 63% accuracy.
Wow.
Hey, but almost 350 yards and 3 TDs and 2 picks. You want to talk about throwing it all over the yard.
Yeah.
Right? So then you go to Jared Goff. He threw it 43. So these guys were like, wee-hoo, wee-hoo. And only almost a little under 70%. He almost threw for 300 yards and 2 TDs. The difference was no picks.
Right.
No picks, right? But so Jared Goff about the same yardage, almost 20 more attempts. So, what does that mean for when he shows up against the Niners? I have no idea. I didn't look at his year, but the point I'm trying to make is Baker Mayfield is just a throwing fiend. He threw it against Eagles, and he just tossed. And by the way, 23 points. They had 32 against obviously against the Eagles, and the Eagles were just like, geez, lose. Yeah, no picks.
Man, they
right?
look terrible.
Good Detroit Lord. Had 2 picks. Let's and then so the last one, which was super interesting. This is a good one. So if you look at Chiefs Buffalo, but you look at the previous week. So Chiefs played in the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes had 41 attempts. I was just like, what? 41 attempts, only 56%. Mm-hmm. So was his let's lay it on the ground receivers having that same. He only had 23 receptions, right? 262 and 1 TD. So that was a slugfest, right? It was frozen, but the difference was their defense didn't let Miami out of the freezer, right? I think didn't they have under 10 points, I think, or at 10 points?
7 points.
Yeah. So, and then you look at Buffalo, right? Buffalo played. Who Buffalo played?
They played.
Oh, Steelers.
Oh, yeah.
So Josh Allen had a day. 70% completion, 200 yards, 3 TDs. Pittsburgh's defense isn't what it used to be, obviously, right?
Right.
And they put up 31 on Pittsburgh, right?
Right.
For Pittsburgh. So now you put them together, what we saw last week, which we certainly want to talk about that game, in my opinion. Mahomes, 73.4. He only had 23 attempts, which I'm stunned by. 215 yards, 2 TDs, and looked like he was in control the whole time of the offense. I don't mean the whole game. I just mean
punted like one time.
Yeah, right? And they had 97 yards rushing, which was huge, right? That
Pacheco runs weird.
Pacheco runs weird, but he runs. Rob said he's a former quarterback.
Well, I looked it up. Last time he played quarterback was in Pop Warner.
I know, but did you see when he went into the end zone and it was like,
yeah,
they fell over in. Anyway, so then you look at Josh Allen against Pittsburgh was unbelievable. Now he goes up against the Chiefs, right? Only complete 66% of his passes and had 39 attempts, which is only 9 more than against Pittsburgh. So that's what they throw is what it looks like. They did have a 72-yard rusher with 2 TDs. Or Josh ran for 72 yards. Holy smoke, you might as well not have another running back, right?
Right.
And but only 186 yards. But he didn't throw a pick. There was a couple that should have been picks. I just think that game, I don't know about you, but I thought that game was extraordinary. I thought, and I marked you, I said, how come 1 minute Josh looks like he's in absolute control of his destiny? He's going to march down the field. He's going to kill you. He's going to have 4 TDs, and you're going to be done. And then the next thing I know, he's one-hopping him to the – and that one that he threw at the pylon where the guy caught it for a TD, and look, that poor Chiefs guy had 0 chance to do anything. Unless he was like, what's the guy from the Fantastic Four with the rubber, right? The rubber guy with the rubber arm would come out and block that.
Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah. Anyway, my point being, 1 minute he looks like that's the only guy I want on my team, and the next minute you're like, ooh, he's Brett Favre.
Well, and I think let's sit on Buffalo, Kansas City for a while, because I think we're going to see Allen versus Mahomes for a while. I think that's our new, and I know Rob kind of disagrees, and for good reason, right? You know, when you look at Brady versus Manning actually came in the league a few years before him. Did end up winning a couple, but for me, this is imagine if Kansas City was in the NFC, and how many times Buffalo would probably be in the Super Bowl. Now, whether they win or not, that's a different conversation.
Well, do they beat Cincinnati the year that they went?
Oh,
right?
No, that's who they lost to. So, that's the one weird outlier.
To your point about the haves and the have-nots, in the AFC, to me, that's really where you've got 4 teams, and it used to be New England, right? That are just above everybody else. And everybody else, I mean, Tennessee, Jacksonville, you just keep going down the list, right? Even in the West, AFC West, Raiders suck.
Yeah.
I don't know why San Diego continues to suck with Herbert, their QB, right?
Bad coaching.
They get they get a good coach. Denver, I don't care what they try. Sean Payton may bring them back. I don't know. Once again, I don't know. So you just keep looking around the league in the AFC, and it's like really good and really terrible.
Well, I was saying, if I look at the NFL standings, right?
Yep.
And I'm not even gonna try to pull this up.
Although the NFC South with the guys that backed in at 8 and 9, right?
Well, that's my point. So if I look at, why would you? Oh, okay, that was weird. At first, it had like the worst team at the top, and I'm like, I don't think that's how standings work. Yeah. So, and actually, it looks a little bit better looking at it now, right? Because top team Baltimore 13-4. The last team who got in was 10-7 with Pittsburgh, but everything below that 9-8, 9-8, 9-8, 8-9, 8-9, 7-10, 6-11, 5-12, 4-13. NFC. Ours is a little weird because obviously the NFC South was garbage, so all those teams were 9-8.
Yes.
So you have like 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, 9-8, 11-6, 10-7, 9-8, 9-8, 9-8, 7-10, 7-10, 7-10, 6-11. So this, and I'm going to keep saying, I feel like the NFL is the weakest it's been in like 30 years.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. I think it's that we just hit where all the old QBs are retiring. We're having the new wave come in. Because now Houston has Stroud, Green Bay has Love.
Right.
Herbert should, with a decent coach, elevate his game.
Fields could be good.
Yeah, he gets so much crap. I don't think he's nearly as bad as people think he is.
They thought, what's his name in New York was going to be good.
Daniel Jones? Oh, no, yeah. Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. And then, so there's a couple of those guys that they thought would be, the next whoever, right? But if you got
Trey Lance.
you got Aaron Rodgers hurt, right? You got goodbye Brady at 42. You got,
well, then Burrow couldn't stay healthy.
Oh, Lord.
There has been a Cousins got hurt. So
and Russ Wilson, who knows?
That team's weird.
Right? Is he done forever?
Geno's
I don't
not
know.
the answer. I think we all agree there.
What's that?
Geno's not the answer.
No. Well, and
neither is Locke. I like Locke. Yeah. He's not the answer. But when you're looking at KC versus Buffalo, and it was weird because we might be a little spicy today because the national media, and I get it, they're not in the analytics business. They're not in the analysis business. They're in the entertainment business.
Right.
Acho actually had to me, said the quiet part out loud on Twitter where he basically said, listen, I can do 6 minutes of analysis on the show. Otherwise, I have to do entertainment because that's what you guys have told me you want. So we have really told these sports shows we're not in it for the analysis to learn. We're in it to either be our bias be proven right or be able to yell at them that they're stupid and wrong. And Allen is getting...
Look, you know what? So I told you and Marco, right? So just so you guys know, we have these conversations offline as well. As somebody who's been watching sports as long as I can remember, right? And you used to have, and you alluded to it, you had sports writers for the team.
Yep.
And then you had region sports writers. So I was in the Bay Area, right, when I was an adult, right? And I moved there in 1980, right? I was 20 years old. And you'd hear these national media guys, because nobody ever watches the West Coast. Nobody in the back east. They lie if they say they watch the Niners on a late Sunday night game. They just don't.
They're in
bed. Right? So why? Because they want to be up Monday morning writing the story that everybody gets. Anyway, my point being, I got to work 49er games. in the press box. And because I work for a copier company and everything had to be copied, every ruling, anyway, it had to go to the guys on the chair. So if the machine broke, they needed somebody to, so dude, I'm telling you what, you're in the press box, you can see the replay and you can see the whole field. Mm-hmm. I was in heaven, except one problem. I was on the visitor's side, so I couldn't cheer. So Russ knows me pretty well. It was like, because you're about ready to yell because Steve just threw a absolute laser down the field. It was touched and whatever. But what I noticed was the curmudgeons from the East were they did not enjoy sports at all. They were, there was barely a high five. And the Giants would be in town, for example, right? The Giants, and this was Phil Simms. This was, the absolute ridiculously awesome defense, Jim Burt, all those guys, right? They had a team in New York. Those guys, that was a stupid call. You just hear them, right? And they're typing of course, they all want the story, right? And it didn't matter if it was New York Jets. It didn't matter if it was New England. It didn't matter. Philly was, oh my Lord, those guys. Miserable humans, right? And they get paid, travel around the United States and write for the Giants. Right for the Niners, right? And then I listened to local sports talk radio. And unfortunately, even back then, everybody wanted to talk about Montana Young. Everybody, right? And nobody wanted to talk about, hey, Joe Montana just broke this record, blah, blah, blah. Everybody wanted to talk about, hate on this guy, hate on that guy. And then the Bay Area sports, you had two teams, right? You had the Raiders on the other side. You had, before they moved for the umpteenth millionth time. But the point I'm trying to make is it was what you get now, every media outlet becomes a megaphone now. Whereas if you didn't read the paper, Russ, you didn't hear what, so-and-so had to say about the Niners in the Sunday game. You just didn't hear it. Now, with Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and, it's coming. There's so many people making money on sports right now that all they do is talk, right? And they're doing what used to happen in like a sports room, like a sports department, right? You had a sports department. Have you watched the evening news? Mm-mm. If they have a sports guy, he's probably the weather guy somewhere. It's almost like everything has become bigger than life, and they need to get people to come back. So if they don't argue, right? If they don't argue about things, right? And I'm as passionate as the next guy about certain things. Me and Rob had a fun this week, but at the same time, I wonder what they would say if you were just sitting around having a beer about Brock Purdy, about Jalen Hurt, about Well,
because I've said they're playing characters on TV. Really, they're not playing.
Yeah. Now, you also said something else, which I thought was fascinating. Some of these dudes forget what they said yesterday,
which is so weird. That's so weird to me.
So I had a guy, and I'll equate this to. This is kind of a weird parallel, but I went to, for those of you who don't know, I went to a Bible study, and the first night I went, the guy said something that was kind of controversial to me. I've been going to church for 40 years, right? I kind of know my Bible a little bit, right? It'd be like you played for the Niners for 40. Well, if they have the same offense coordinator, you got the same playbook. By the way, I do have my Pee Wee playbook somewhere around here. But anyway, all of a sudden he said something. I'm just kind of like, what? So me being who I am, I graciously said something kind of in opposition. Well, the very next week we come back and now all of a sudden he has my position. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's like, so when you hear these guys, in 1 minute they're saying Brock Purdy is the second coming, and the next minute he's trash because he got just crushed by Baltimore, and he's never been the same. Well, he won the rest of those games, and he's in the AFC playoff, and he did the one thing somebody said he couldn't do, which was come from behind, right? And I don't know at this point, unless he wins the Super Bowl and is the Super Bowl MVP, is anybody going to give him?
It's not going to matter. So to me, this is why Casey and Buffalo is such an interesting one, right? It's one of the big knocks Rob has, and a lot of people have on Allen. And Louis Riddick had a great point. I actually like. I always call him Greeny because it was Golick, and I really like him. I think he does a really good job.
Greenberg's great.
him, Jeff Saturday, Louis Riddick, I think are actually really, really good. They're more of the even.
There's other guys that you and I just go, can't listen to that guy.
No, and unfortunately, they're some of those popular ones, which is very frustrating. Yeah. But he had the great point of, hey, guys, we just spent 20 minutes arguing that Allen didn't do what Purdy did, which is win the game. I thought that was the most important part. Now, and then the annoying people will be like, well, but all Jimmy did was win. It's like, that's not the same. If you watched Jimmy, he was the, you ever taken a kid for a walk?
What was the 2 games in a row? He threw like 7 passes or something, you said?
It was in the playoffs. He threw like a total of 13 before the Super Bowl. The analogy I used for Jimmy.
He had like 35 runs, right?
Right. Mostert against Green Bay had 250 yards rushing. Yeah. We were trying to hit 40 rushes per game. To me, it's like when you take your kid for a walk and then you're like, Dad, I'm going to ride my scooter all the way around. I promise.
You're like, no, you're not.
And you end up holding it and he's in the wagon behind you.
Do you remember taking Hannah for a walk?
Or she'd quit halfway and go home?
Quit halfway, yes. Golden Retriever, by the way. Anyway, but you knew. You're like, God. I would tell your mom, let's not take Hannah. She wants to go now. She won't want to go at the corner. You know it's coming. Yeah. So so back to your point about the guys that, say what do you say, the quiet part out loud, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so anything else on the games that got played?
Well, and that to me, the obviously and that's why I like the Allen comparison is when people are like, Love outplayed Purdy, and I was trying to find it, but in the second half, he was like 6 of 12 for 30 yards and 2 picks. So. And by the way, Love, I think is going to be really good. I think he's going to be dangerous.
Oh, absolutely.
But how does he get he has promise. And to quote Ryan Clark, the league should be thrilled that Jordan Love is not on the Niners.
Although, here's the thing. He did have 2 touchdown tosses in the second and third quarter. Jordan Love.
True. Absolutely.
They didn't do jack in the first half. They had 2 field goals.
Correct. And he did great, and he had some incredible throws. I do think the weather affected him. And for whatever reason, rain is obviously in Purdy's head because you don't put on a glove, almost throw a pick 6, take it off, and then struggle for the rest of the game. That's mental to me. That's all mental.
Well, yeah, and you never know. You don't know how much. And they asked questions about it, right? And he just said, I couldn't do it with the glove. And I don't know how much he practiced with it. There's guys that wore gloves forever in the NFL as a QB, right? The thing is sticky as snot. I don't know if you've ever touched those. Rob had me touch it when we were doing the Fountain Hill stuff. Man, those things, they make Stickum look like, slip slidey stuff, right? Because they just, you could catch. It's no wonder guys can catch a ball one-handed with them gloves. I could probably do that, and I'm not that guy, right? Anyway. Well, so what do you think they'll go forward? Obviously, I think the game of the weekend is Baltimore and the Chiefs. I just think I have no idea. It could be 9-7.
I foresee
or it could be 31-28.
So it all depends, right? It's all about the script that you come into the game with, right? Because when the Niners lost to the Ravens, it was, hey, they obviously knew what our goals were able to really give themselves some chances and capitalize on kind of what we do as an offense. I think they have the athletes to stick with Kansas City, and they have pressure. And we've seen the one time that Mahomes has looked mortal was against Tampa in the Super Bowl. Now, he was out 2 of his offensive linemen, but they had him running for his life the whole game, and his stats actually weren't that good. And interestingly enough, his stats in Super Bowls in general, I think outside of the Eagles, are just kind of okay.
Right.
Which, whatever. Like, that's not... I'm not even using that as a knock on him. So if Baltimore comes out like they did against the Niners, where they're giving kind of like the Bears when they used to basically score more points on defense than they did on offense because they just didn't have a quarterback. If they can do that, I think it's going to be a really long day for Kansas City, because the thing people forget about in the Buffalo-Kansas City matchup is everybody always blames Allen, because essentially what Buffalo requires of him is to play perfect.
Right.
With the Ravens, with a great defense, Lamar doesn't have to play perfect. He actually played fairly terrible against the Niners.
It's going to rain like crazy and be 44 degrees on Sunday in Baltimore. So I don't know what that means. Huh, yeah, Baltimore's outside. I'm pretty darn sure.
For some reason, that sounds right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Open air. Which in my
last
opinion,
meeting. Hey, how about this? Last meeting, Baltimore 36, Chiefs 35.
I think Lamar can keep up with Mahomes.
That was 2 years ago, by the way. That was 2.5 years ago, actually. But anyway, so yeah,
those defenses I think are not that the quarterbacks don't matter, but Buffalo not having a great defense, like I've told you before, Allen has never finished a game except for the last one with the ball. He always ends up scoring, and then the other team scores again. So everybody likes to blame him, but I don't think it's warranted.
Yeah.
Against Baltimore, they have the defense and the type of offense that I think can give Kansas City a lot of problems, especially because it's Lamar. So could I see them blowing them out? I don't think so. Could I see them winning by double digits? Yes. Yes, I could. But could I see Kansas City doing the thing they keep doing, which is where you can't make them go away? Absolutely.
Well, and I can see Baltimore doing go down, huge long drive, 3 points. Huge long drive, 3 points. Mahomes scores at 7-6, which is what happened against Baltimore or Buffalo.
Yeah.
Right. That's what happened with the Niners. Right. Supposedly, they were pushing them all over the field in the first half. They had 6 points. Niners got a touchdown. It was 7-6.
Well, I think people forget too, so when you're trying to analyze games affected by weather, sometimes you don't get good data because the number of times that Niners fell down on defense and led to big plays, you need to factor in if the conditions were good, what would those have looked like?
Yeah, great question, by the way. Hold on one second.
I can count at least 4 different times where a guy fell down, especially in the first couple drives that led to points. Well, then Ambry Thomas just deciding he didn't feel like playing defense, so was just going to run into people.
Going to be 71 degrees and no rain, no nothing in Levi Stadium on Sunday.
Listen, I get it. That favors the quarterbacks, but I think that also helps our defense. I think Purdy is a completely different quarterback when there's not weather. And when there wasn't weather, he threw 4 touchdowns and 300 yards against the Seahawks. So, I mean, listen, not that I don't think Lions can't beat them, but they're not a juggernaut. If we're just going off of what the Niners typically do against good teams, 11 of their 12 wins in the regular season were by at least 10 points. So,
yeah, I mean, they put 42 on Eagles.
The problem is Eagles and Cowboys are 2 wins that kind of like college. They didn't age well because both of those teams kind of proved that there's specific offenses. Well, actually, everyone against the Eagles, but against the Cowboys, there's specific offenses and schemes that just dice them up. While the ones where I think are more impressive in a weird way is even the loss to the Browns. We were within a missed field goal of tying / winning. Yeah. So the Lions have an okay defense. Hutchinson is a problem, but I don't worry about that defense like you worry about the Ravens or even Kansas City. I think they're the most overachieved. They're a little bit the Bengals when they went into the Super Bowl and then kind of got waxed by the Rams, where they're kind of they're overachieving this year because Dan Campbell has them believing, which is awesome. And on any given day, if you get a couple good bounces, yes, you can beat the Niners. But if that snowball, which is their whole game plan, starts rolling downhill, I don't think they can hang with them.
Right.
Goff is 0-5 against any time he's played the Niners. So we kind of have his number. But, hey, it is the playoffs. If you're Green Bay, you're thinking, man, we should have had that game.
Yeah, okay. I think I think they had no pressure and Niners had all the pressure. And that creates a freewheeling, not tight. And it took, the pressure is such a insidious thing.
Mm-hmm.
You grip the ball a little tighter, you throw a little harder, you aim it a little bit, you try to make the play when you should have just stayed at home. you see some of those cutback runs from people, and you're like, where did the linebacker? And then they ISO the linebacker, and of course he watched it on a film, he knows where he's going, he goes there, and for whatever reason, the hole opens kind of a little bit behind where it normally would open, and the guy's running for 25 yards, and everybody goes, "Oh, terrible defense!" Right? So whoa, hold on. They run that play. I mean, like the old sprint draw, man. Niners ran the sprint draw until you would throw up, right? He's sprinting like he's going to go out and throw, especially Steve Young, because he liked to run, right? He'd get him outside the pocket with the left hand, and he was just dangerous. But he'd give that little, and it was almost like a counter, and go back inside, sprint draw, and everybody's moving one way, and there's just all of a sudden he's going behind the tackle. Next time, going behind the guard. Next time, and everybody goes, oh, they're just manhandling the line. Well, back in the day, they called it zone blocking. You take the guy wherever he wants to go.
Right.
And let the back choose where to go. And if you're Roger Craig, if you're Emmitt Smith, you can find the hole. Right now, you can probably count the backs in the NFL right now on one hand that can actually do that well. McCaffrey does it because you see him delay. He's really good at setting up blocks and waiting, right? And he's got a little bit of a giddy up to get through there. But there's other guys, if the hole ain't there, you've seen them. They bury their head down and end up in a yard and a half, right? So it is a different kind of offensive situation now than it was in the older days, I think. And I don't know. I think it's offensive philosophy. I really do. I think it could. I don't look. All Detroit fans that ever watch this, the Niners should play and should beat them, and they should beat them by 2 scores. I don't see Jared Goff beating the Niners defense. Number one, right? Number two, I see Purdy on a nice sunny day in Santa Clara, just throwing for 290 and three TDs, and McCaffrey having 100 plus,
right? Whether
it's rushing or receiving, right? You just get him out on the edge, right? I haven't looked at the injury thing to see what the heck was going on with his quad, but he was getting some whatever you want to call that, medical attention, right? In the AFC game, I'm betting on the Chiefs. I really am. After watching them against Buffalo and their defense, all of a sudden, and by the way, I'm not saying Josh Allen and Lamar are the same guy, but they have the same style. Like you said, Lamar doesn't run first.
No.
Well, neither does Josh, but he has 72 yards rushing in a loss, right? So if the Chiefs defense can do what they did against Buffalo, in other words, hold them to three, and Chiefs can do something on offense that nobody else seems to be able to do. And I was going to go back and look at Baltimore because they had some weird losses.
Yeah. Well, especially someone was talking about, I think it was Rob, but they had 3 where they were ahead and ended up losing. So technically they pretty much could have gone like 16-1. But obviously that, there's other games where, you could have lost and you ended up winning. So
yeah, I mean, so it's weird the way it shows, but let's get mid-season, right? They beat the Browns 28-3, but they lose to the Steelers 17-10.
Well, but hold on. We know divisional games are a complete crapshoot.
Yeah.
Because when the Niners were good, we were losing to the Jim Fisher Rams.
Yeah. They lost to the Browns 33-31. So the Steelers held them to. Well, wait a minute. Yeah. Oh, that was a final game. Nobody cares. I mean, the Commanders. Oh, that's preseason. So regular season. Colts beat them 22-19. Steelers
Colts were
beat them.
Pretty competitive this year, actually.
Exactly. No. All I'm saying is, Browns beat them by 2. The Rams had put 31 on them. So
listen, I think the only reason they really if the Niners game had been close and the Niners have won, I don't think there would be, because we know this, right? Everybody in the media.
That's why I'm picking Chiefs anyway.
Well, listen, this is why in the media everybody does this, right? Green Bay, and listen, I'm not even going to argue. The Niners were rusty, and we talked about rust versus rust. Obviously, it affected us. Yes. Weather obviously affected us. Debo going out affected us. I think Shanahan called probably one of his worst coaching games of the entire playoffs. It was really, really weird.
Yeah, it took him forever to figure out what to do.
My big problem with Shanahan is I don't feel like he learns anything. I think he's
so real quick to call you out a little bit though. You were all over Wilkes, and then he turned into his second coming. So.
No, I still have.
By the way, you've been on Shanahan all year, so this isn't like news to anybody that doesn't.
No, well, listen, I will say Wilkes has done a good job, but I'd love to see him. It's similar to the Brady problem, right? Is I feel like he doesn't really. He's better with our cornerbacks. We have one of the most impotent defensive lines in football with the talent that we have.
I don't understand. Did you see him flip them back and forth against? They flipped the ends like twice.
So. I like him, but he's someone where if I have shut down corners, I think he's a fantastic coach because I think he does a great job with the secondary. The problem is we don't have the personnel for what he's trying to do, in my opinion. Yeah. Because, Ambry Thomas goes from looking like, an all-pro to he should really be on the bench.
Well, so here's a funny. So as I brag about the Niners offense and their downfield blocking of the wideouts. I don't know who their wideout coach is. The guy deserves an A.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is the only time the Niners defense is where, oh my gosh, is when they are team tackling, team running to the ball. Buffalo does that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know who their defense coordinator is. I don't know who their position coaches are. But if you watch Buffalo, they're putting a hat on somebody with 3 other guys all the time, right? So you don't get like the gimme 20-yard run because the cornerback just kind of gives him that weird shoulder, tries to knock him off his feet. That does not happen. If you do that in Baltimore's defense, you don't play. Right. So, but that's not. I'm not fast forwarding to a Super Bowl matchup of the Ravens and Niners. I'm not doing that.
Well, especially since our tackling has been actually pretty poor.
That's what I'm saying. So if you look at the Niners, right, back in the day when the Seahawks were right, they were teaching people how to tackle. They were doing
Legion of Boom.
Right, but it was more. So I love that. By the way, I love that with Richard Sherman. But they did more than boom.
Oh yeah,
Cam Chancellor was boom.
Yep.
But the other 3 guys that would tackle
Wagner.
It would just swarm, right? I mean, it was just anyway. So if the Niners could get the wideout kind of effort from the secondary, the back 7 individual, because I'll tell you what. You're not going to turn Bosa down. His number is his goer is going from
now. Hold on though. What I noticed, there was a couple things. One, we had Logan Ryan in a safety instead of even our rookie, who's a better tackler. Ambry Thomas is a poor tackler, but on that point, both Bosa and Chase Young got blocked by wide receivers trying to set the edge and they were off the block.
That was
disappointing.
I thought that was one. It was an interesting strategy. If I'm looking at that, and maybe they saw somebody else do that and actually get away with it. Because look, here's the deal: as a wide receiver, you don't have to knock the guy down. You just get in his way, and you get away with a hold. Because I don't know if you saw the backside; he had a hold of Bosa's shirt.
But we know the rule, right? You make the ref call it.
Yes,
you have to give the effort.
That's why I'm saying you don't have to be the best blocker. You just get in their dang way. Like there was a couple of pick plays that are really picks.
Yeah.
But they said they're inside. The guy hit him behind the line, so it's not a pick. Blah, blah, blah. And it is funny how they're letting him get away with a lot of picks, in my opinion. But anyway, so back to it. So I do think Niners should beat Detroit.
Yeah.
I like Detroit. I really do. I hope they have success in the future, but I don't see them beating the Niners, right? At home, in good weather, after what happened last week, right? And I think it's a knockdown drag out in Baltimore, and somehow Patrick Mahomes comes out with a win.
He's really hard to bet against.
I don't know if it's 1 point. I don't know if it's 3 points. I'm going with Chiefs, and then it ends up beating Chiefs Niners, and I think Chiefs favored by at least a touchdown.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they win by a touchdown.
No, but listen, like this is what we talked about, and we'll get. I want to spend probably like 10 minutes on Purdy because.
Oh, okay.
Listen, this has always been the problem. You know, when you have the quarterback with the least amount of experience and the most question marks, according to national media, and it's against Mahomes. Mahomes is the person you pick. Let's just face it. Like, you should. That's correct. I totally get it.
Well, but isn't Lamar? So who's favored? Do you know on the?
I think it's Baltimore.
I would think. At home, yeah. Chiefs on the road.
I don't think it's by much, though. Well, because at this point, I think
it's over 3.
It's exactly 3.
Then that's a toss-up then.
That's literally what they're saying, yeah.
The home thing, they give them 3 points, right?
Wow, correct. Every time. Yeah. It's always at least 3. If it's over 3, that tells you a lot. If it's under 3, that tells you a lot. The Niners game is they're +7. Or sorry, -7. They're favored by 7. Yeah. Which I think is fine. I think that's about right.
Yeah. It's something for them to put up on the wall in the Lions locker room. Anyway, so what about the national media? So we've seen. I saw the one with the one you flipped me that the gentleman was, and I trashed him in it, and I shouldn't have, about him saying that Justin Fields was a difference maker and Purdy is not. Well,
but what's so frustrating is, and I don't get it. And all I want is consistency. Like, if you just came out, like Ryan Clark, I really like him. And this is why I was so bummed by what he said, was I had to pretend all year that he deserved to be in the same conversation. It's like...
With who?
Allen.
The other quarterbacks that are not in the
MVP.
MVP. Look, I don't know why he was included in the MVP discussion when you have Mahomes, Lamar... CJ, Mahomes, if Aaron Rodgers, if he's healthy, there's some serious stud guys out there that are in that, and then, by the way, that's just QBs. There's other guys that arguably could be in the MVP category. What's the receiver in Buffalo that's just all world?
Diggs?
Yeah.
Which he dropped a couple, by the way, in the game. Yeah. So this is the exact quote from Ryan Clark. The single hardest thing I had to do this year was act like Brock Purdy deserved to be in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen, because he was playing extremely well and operating in that offense. So essentially,
you lied.
Well, and he said because, we had to include him because he was playing well. Those things are not alike. Brock Purdy is a fine player. He can operate in Kyle Shanahan's offense at an extremely efficient level. He doesn't raise the level of play of anyone around him. And that's why I have a problem.
Man, I'm telling you what, all my compadres post that one in their locker.
Oh, dude, both Debo and Ayuk came out.
You saw the
what
one
are
I
you talking about?
You saw the one I flipped you.
Yeah.
What it does, hey, look, those are the ones as a former player, which you never got a single write-up in the paper, but I just know what those things, when people say stuff, like when you're on the field, and so I'll give you just one quick story, right? Pee Wee football. I'm middle linebacker and quarterback, and we're playing what we call the Kirkland Nationals, and their uniforms are as black as night, and they looked ginormous, right? Mm-hmm. And if those of you who don't know, if you've ever played Pee Wee football, back then it was age, weight, height, I believe. It was this factor, right? So you didn't end up with a kid that was 6'5", 235 playing against a bunch of, 4'10" kids, right? So anyway, they had this running back, Russ. He was as big as his chair, if you ask me. I was like, and we were down 13-0, and it was a slugfest. I mean, it was in the middle of this swamp in where we played our games in Washington. And this guy comes through the line, and I stick him in his numbers and literally put him up on my helmet and plant him in the ground. And when I got up from the tackle, I look around, and my team, their eyes are like, oh.
He's mortal. He bleeds.
They aren't. And next thing we know, man, this whole thing flips. And you could just see the difference in the other team's eyes. Mm-hmm. We end up losing 13-12. By the way, we had 2 touchdowns with no extra point. Couldn't kick an extra point to save our life. Anyway, anyway, my point being, though, it changed everything. It wasn't Mo. It was the belief that we should be in the game with these guys.
Right.
I mean, our jerseys were orange. We had white pants. We looked like a creamsicle out there, right? Against these Kirkland Nationals, right? And anyway, Kirkland had 2 teams, Nationals and American, right? Americans looked like the Cowboys. They had the Cowboys colors. Anyway, so you see guys that all of a sudden believe, and it's usually in college more than the pros, But they believe in Brock Purdy, and that's all that matters. They have his back. They are going to carry Brock Purdy. If they win the Super Bowl, they're carrying Brock Purdy out of the Super Bowl. That's what's going to happen. Because here's the truth in the NFL. From about 3 weeks ago forward, it is all about the QB. It is all about the QB. Dak Prescott, love him, sucked, right? CJ shined and then sucked against Baltimore. Oh, it's the Baltimore defense. Okay, it's the Baltimore defense. He looked pretty damn good against what everybody said was a pretty good defense in Dallas.
Well,
right?
But we also know, right, that and this is a pet peeve of mine, even though I agree with you. It does ultimately, and this is why we end up talking about quarterbacks. This is why we're talking about Purdy.
Always.
But you need 11 players to make a play go right.
Look, if you ask the quarterback, that's the first thing he's going to say. Certainly, hey, look, I played Pee Wee. I was quarterback and linebacker. I didn't want to play quarterback. Russ, why didn't I want to play quarterback?
Because you never saw pass completed.
I got creamed. I got absolutely creamed. We had this guy by the name of Mike Olson. He's still a friend of mine on Facebook, by the way. And he would squat like the frog. He played guard, and he would get run over every time. And I would throw a touchdown pass, and I would end up flat on my back. And anyway, but that all being said, I still think everything hinges. Look, so the NBA, and you know me, it's down under women's lacrosse, and it's one of the sports I love. It still comes down to stars. There's a gentleman, I won't mention him.
I hate this software.
Oh, Lord. So, real quick. So there's a gentleman who's played in the NBA, played overseas. He came to our men's group. He's a personal friend of one of the guys in the men's group and got to share. And one of the questions somebody asked him is, what does it take to win in the NBA? You know what the first thing he said was?
No idea.
Superstar. If you don't have a superstar, you don't win. If you don't have Kevin Durant, if you don't have LeBron, if you don't have what's the kid in Milwaukee?
Oh my gosh, Giannis.
Yeah, if you don't have, look, you can have Damian Lillard, but if you don't have the dude, right? You don't get over the top. You just don't. It might be a freak year where three of your guys outdo one guy. Not anymore in the NBA. I still think in the NFL, and it's why the conversation about poor Justin Fields, they're talking about taking the guy from USC. Now everybody but Chicago is talking about that. Let's be fair. National media, is Justin Fields a future for Chicago? And you and I have talked about it, man. Take the draft picks if you think Justin Fields. Here's the sad part: if they don't think Justin Fields is their guy, I'm somebody else going, I'll take Justin Fields.
Yep.
Right? I have no quarterback. Anyway, it just look at the teams that suck. Either they don't have a quarterback or the quarterback got hurt. Look what happened to Cincinnati, right? Without Burrow.
Well, they had that hilarious streak with the backup.
They didn't end up anywhere near the top.
Right. Well, they
Look, Geno. Oh, he's the second. They're 9-8 with Geno Smith. They made the playoffs one year at 9-8.
There's some hilarious.
Nothing against Geno Smith. Look, I can't play Geno Smith.
No.
Right?
But there's some hilarious
not even
Seahawks fans who are like, we'd still take him over Purdy. And that to me is the thing that bothers me. And real quick,
the same people that don't think Pete was done.
Well,
people that don't think Pete was done. And
social media gives a lot of people a voice who don't need one, including myself. Who cares what I think?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But there's a great
Russ and Russ, right?
Yeah, like we're doing the part of this for fun, for zero people. Yeah. Like that's not why we're doing this.
For us.
George Kittle had a great quote on the Pat McAfee show where he said, "There's moments in the game where Brock expressed himself to our players."
I know you showed me that clip. It's so good.
Yeah, and you know what? What's funny is what came right after that. To your point, a little bit about belief is that's where he went 6 for 7 with a drop, ironically, by Kittle. Is I do think there's an element
who never drops a ball. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and you could see
Debo's gone and Kittle drops a ball. What?
Which, by the way, that is the difference too. By the way, in the previous losses, is Purdy didn't slow down. Typically, those killed drives. But I do wonder now that he's about to finish his first year. We'll see how the playoffs end. Is the jump from year 1 to year 2 was I'm not just going to throw it where Shanahan tells me. Then in year 2 it was okay. There's good reasons sometimes why Shanahan tells me to throw it there.
Yes.
Then there was okay. I got to really pick my spots when I try to go off schedule. Mm-hmm. Then it's the playoff adversity and how do I navigate through a terrible game, and did it. So you're seeing each of these incremental growths, and it's why it so bothers me to go back to national media. I hate talking refs. I hate talking national media because all I want is for you to be consistent. But I also understand I need to stop getting mad essentially at SpongeBob because they're not real people. They're characters. They're not saying real opinions.
Mad at SpongeBob, Russ. That's a great quote. We need to write that down.
But it doesn't make me any more frustrated because all I want, I'm not even saying he should be Lamar, Allen, Mahomes.
Well, what was the last gentleman that you said?
Ryan Clark.
Dude.
Like, I think there's a line, right, where, hey, you can say he's playing really well, but also say, hey, we need more time to kind of figure out what his ceiling looks like. I understand he's playing on a loaded team. That's fine. Lots of quarterbacks play on loaded teams, and we give them credit. But to basically tell me you've had an opinion in the back of your head all year, and you were just waiting for ammo to let it go bothers me. Joy Taylor, and I try not calling people out, but just so people know the quote, said, the only standard now is winning. And I'm like, I literally could play a clip of you saying that about Jalen Hurts. And that was your whole credit to him was when they were 10 or up until they were 10-1, she kept saying they're the best team because, listen, yeah, he plays poorly for 3 quarters, but he wins it in the 4th quarter. Purdy does it, and it's like, well, we're worried about him. It's like, I don't know what you want from this kid. If you just want to say, listen, I just don't think he's that good, just say that. It's like when I watch people use statistics to kind of prove their point when it's like, you are really you want your point to be proven rather than look for just at the evidence. And I can't stand that. Nick Wright literally had criteria. Play without the Avengers, play from behind, win when playing poorly, have a game-winning drive. And he said, yep, you'd think I would admit now that Purdy did all those things. Nope, he's still the weakest link. I'm still worried about him. You're like, so what do you need to see? Because you're giving this guy this, and I get it, he's a 7th rounder. The burden of proof is so much higher than even Jordan Love, who outplayed Purdy. We talked about that. I don't get it.
His stats, he didn't really outplay Purdy, but that's just me.
I don't get it anymore. And people are like, well, but they dropped 2 interceptions. We dropped 2 of Jordan Love's interceptions. He should have probably had 4. So, and by the way, I don't count. In the Green Bay game, you guys don't.
By the way, we are not what do you call it? Detrimenting. We're not dumping on.
No.
Jordan Love. I'd take Jordan Love.
He's good.
If I'm Seattle, hey, you don't want him? I'll take him in a heartbeat. Right. Mm-hmm. So don't go there. Right. It's not. We're comparing the two things where Jordan Love was the second coming and Purdy sucked. And yet, at the end of the day, Brock's numbers are better, and he won.
Right. You literally actually have the perfect juxtaposition.
Jordan had a better game. No, he didn't.
Right. You have the perfect juxtaposition. He went 6 for 7 with a drop on his last drive. Jordan Love threw across his body to the middle of the field for a game-losing pick. You have the perfect juxtaposition. And by the way, I'm also not going to just ignore the first 3 quarters. Jimmy G was an arsonist. He would play terrible for 3 quarters and then clean up his own mess. So at some point, you can't keep doing it. Jalen Hurts, it caught up to him. But this is wanted to see it.
But this was the first time.
That's my point. It was the first time.
Right? He couldn't turn around Baltimore. Got it. Right? Okay, now he's trash.
Yeah, that flip-flopping is ridiculous.
By the way, he did the things you said he couldn't do. By the way, Purdy wasn't the only one that didn't look like they woke up on the right side of the bed. Mm-hmm. It looked the whole Niners were having trouble figuring out what the hell they're doing. Well, they gave up two touchdowns in the 3rd quarter.
Well, and what's so weird, and again, Twitter is a hellscape, but people get into this constantly like, well, but you keep trying to put him in the MVP conversation. That's why we're so hard on him.
No,
it's like, well, but
I am not.
Well, but even when I was saying like he had a legitimate shot, it was he set a franchise record for yards. He's the only team in history to have 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back go for 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Yep. So all we're saying is
4 guys set records.
You led the league in like 20 different categories.
He didn't throw. Look, here's the thing. He didn't just drop back and throw it to Deebo Samuel.
Right.
He didn't. Right. He didn't just drop back and hand off. Right. He threw to 4 or 5 different people. By the way,
on the last drive, he threw to 5 different people.
Right. Exactly.
Which, now, by the way, you know what I watched?
That's what they said about you said about the Chiefs game. You don't want the second guy or the second tier guy like trying to reach over because he's flinging around.
When everybody complains about the rule.
And then they change it, and then we're gonna get New England. You're gonna bitch about the rule, so they'll change it. What the heck?
It's really weird.
Up.
But you know what I just watched recently for the first time?
What?
The Drive. And you know what? And I don't mean this remotely
perjury.
I was about to say, I don't mean this even as a negative. His longest pass, I think, was like 12 yards to Jerry Rice, who took 30 yards down the field. No one talks about it.
So the other one you should watch is the 8-yard. I think it's an 8-yard slant to Taylor, who then runs like 90 yards. It's a 92-yard score. And Joe looks like he had a 92-yard pass. No, he didn't. He had an 8-yard pass, and the rack yardage afterwards was Taylor, right? And by Jerry did that, But at the end of the day, here's the thing that separated Joe from everybody, including Brady, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He threw a touchdown pass one time that I swear to God, if you watch the replay, it's in a hole about this big. 2 guys going like this. It's like throwing through 2 moving trains, in my opinion, for a touchdown, and it's right here. Right, it's literally right here between 2. I mean, and he did that. Look, I got to watch him live too. Right, here's the other thing. I love Steve Young. Now, I didn't like him at the time. Steve Young struggled to throw over the middle. He threw it left-handed, and it was on the back shoulder until he finally. I don't know what was going on with, but you could see it. And he threw the best down the sidelines pass. Unbelievable. Drop it in like a loaf of bread. Right. And it was great to watch from the press box. But people forget, right? We are so, like, I'll give you an example. I said this. I don't remember who I was saying this to. I don't think I said it to you. I said the best in the game, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, could play today in today's, right?
Oh yeah,
and still be the best. And here's the thing: could LeBron play with those guys? Yes, he could.
100%.
Absolutely. Don't tell me he couldn't play against Michael Jordan or whoever. He could, because he's still the best.
Right.
Kobe could have played with Bill Russell. Now, would Bill Russell have pushed him on the ground? You bet he would have. So my point being, right, I don't think Joe Montana is better than everybody that's ever played. I don't think Peyton Manning is better than Johnny Unitas. I don't do that, right? But I still think if you're the best at what you do, you could be the best today too.
Right.
Even with, hey, look, here's the part. Here's the part that would be scary. Joe Montana, Troy Aikman, Dan Marino, Dan Fouts with the quarterback rules today.
Oh, they throw for like 8,000 yards.
At some point, I want to show that video of those guys getting tackled back in the day. That literally every one of them would have been a 15-yard penalty day.
It would be an assault charge.
It hurts to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one where I don't remember who it was. The helmet comes up through, and he didn't aim for his face. It just came up through.
Right.
And he ends up with a freaking, like a knot with stitches in it. By the way, went back in and played.
Can I did I tell you that the hit when Brady replaced Bledsoe, he had a collapsed lung, a concussion. He almost died from the hit.
Bledsoe?
Yeah. I didn't remember that.
I didn't want to hug him. I didn't. Right. That's probably why I didn't want to hug.
So real quick, and by the way, I don't mean any of this as a knock on Joe, but just as a point of even great QBs have bad playoff games.
Absolutely.
1985, 296 yards, interception, 65 QBR versus the Giants. 96, 98 yards.
No. Go back to that game. Go back to the previous game. That's where I think that may have been the game that ended his Niners career.
No, that was 1985.
Oh, I thought you said 95. Sorry.
No, 1986, 98 yards, two interceptions, a pick six, 33 QBR versus the Giants in a 49-3 loss.
Oh, yeah.
He got knocked out at 28-3.
Yeah.
90, I'm doing it now. 87, 108 yards, an interception, a 42 rating, and an upset loss against Minnesota. They were the 1 seed. Yep. So 3 straight one and dones with 0 touchdowns. Yep. So, and I didn't know this because, again, listen, 1990 he plays in the title game. I'm being born. So let's not 190 yards, touchdown, 1 fumble, knocked out. Did not know this because really all of this was to get to, Dad, how many interceptions did he have against the Cowboys in the catch game?
I think he had 2. 3, okay.
And a lost fumble. Now, and I don't even mean that to be... He was playing.
By the way, the Cowboys were the team.
And they were really, really good.
They were the decade team, right?
No one remembers that because he went and won the game, but also kept winning. So to be clear, I don't mean Purdy's one game now should be enshrined.
That was like a breakout game. No, that was like a
right. Now let's see over the next 2 or 3 years how he does, because that's the difference, right? There's been quarterbacks who've had incredible playoff runs, one and dones. Mm-hmm. Flacco played out of his mind against Baltimore to get him a Super Bowl. Won. Nick Foles won with the Eagles.
Williams, when he played for the Eagles, won a Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure. Black guy threw like a, I mean, just, he remind me of Warren Moon.
I think it's before my time.
Doug Williams. Oh, yeah. No. My point being,
I was like, I don't know that name.
One and gone, right?
Right. Or Eli Manning. He has his entire Hall of Fame resume on 2 playoff runs.
Yeah, exactly.
Beating Brady. Otherwise, he's literally 500 for his career in regular season. Robbie said his name was Tyree, who's done nothing since. And that's okay, by the way. Yep. You know, Dan Marino has 0. Not Phil Simms. I'm sorry. Jim Kelly is 0 for 4 with Buffalo. And we act like he's just garbage.
Dan Fouts. Air Coryell was, I mean, so much fun to watch. When they played Marino, it was like 54-51. It was like ping pong. It was like the Super Bowl last year with Philly and it's like nobody could stop anybody.
Well, and you know, we forget Elway didn't win until he got Shannon Sharp and Terrell Davis because it matters.
By the way, he got trounced by Joe Montana.
Yeah, a lot of people. Cincinnati quarterback.
Marino, Fouts, and Elway all got beat by.
Right, but Cincinnati's quarterback.
Anderson? Oh no, Boomer.
Thank you. Like, he would have Super Bowl rings if not for Joe Montana. But Tom Brady, best to ever do it. First Super Bowl appearance, 16 for 27, 145 yards, 1 touchdown. Carolina had a much better game, 32-48, 354 yards, 3 touchdowns. Against the Giants, 29-48, 266 yards, 1 touchdown.
Times. Mm-hmm. Belichick must have been having a baby on the sidelines.
Next time he plays the Giants, 27-41, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And everybody forgets, when they played the Rams, he was 21 of 35 for 262 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. Like, even the best of all time, there's a couple in here where you're like, yeah, it's kind of just okay. Against your Seahawks, 37-50, 328, 4 touchdowns.
50.
2 picks.
50 times.
And I want to show real quick.
Quinn. Thank you, Dan Quinn.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Patrick Mahomes, who people think it probably might end up being one of the best ever. 26 of 42 against the Niners. 286. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Against Tampa Bay, 26 of 49, 270 yards. 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. His best game was against Philly, 21 of 27, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns. So these are some of the best to ever do it. And they not only had some bad playoff games, they played bad in Super Bowl losses.
Well, and so here, I'm sure Aikman just has a baby that we never mention, right? Because here's the problem. They always say, it was Emmett. It was their giant.
True.
line. It was what's his name, the wideout, Irvin. It was their tight end, right? It was Moose. It was, and it's like, wait a minute. You look at stats on Aikman.
Aikman was a stud.
He was just fine, and then of course they say, oh, it was Jimmy Johnson,
right?
But they won it with Switzer too, who. Yeah. Anyway, very
well, but it's just frustrating, right? Because we keep saying, like, I just quick story. I volunteered to help coach my son's flag football and got assigned a team.
I'm sorry, this is so funny, Russ.
And I was not prepared. But
no, you didn't volunteer to start with. Tell the whole story. You were just signing up Tim.
Yeah, well, I was signing up Tim.
And
he's on a wait list.
Openings.
And they're like, well, there's a little button like, do you want to coach? I was like, well, yeah, I'd like to help out. I think I can help with Tim because my son got some special needs. So like I know him pretty well, so I can help out. And I get an email on the 21st, I think, on Sunday, sitting watching football, and they're like, hey, here's your team roster. Please email parents. And I was just like, oh, okay.
What?
All right.
What?
Cool.
Yeah. Baptism by fire.
But, even all of that, to say is when I'm going to be teaching them flag football, I have 7, 8-year-olds. My son's 8. My whole goal is going to be essentially everybody's going to play every position. You guys are going to learn this because you need the fundamentals. Because for any play to work, I don't care your age. I don't care whether you're 8 or 38.
It's probably more important to little guys.
100%, because, if something goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong. Well, although we say that, but in the playoffs, I think it was either Green Bay or Houston, had people open by 17 yards. That was the most in the NFL all year.
When they only had 10 men on the field.
Oh, good Lord. So even adults do it wrong. Just to prove the point, you need everybody. And I say 11. You actually need 12, 13, 14, 15. Assistant coach, head coach, line coach, receiver coach, and that's just offense. I'm not even including like running back coach. You need everybody on the same page for a play to work. So to say Aikman, is just his coach. Well, okay, name an elite QB who's won a Super Bowl with a mediocre head coach. I can't name one.
Nope.
I can name some elite coaches who've won with probably mediocre QBs. No offense, Trent Dilfer or Joe Flacco, but we'd probably put those not in any conversation. They're good, But Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. You already mentioned Aikman, Joe Montana with Jerry Rice, Steve Young. At one point had Terrell Owens, who's considered one of the best of all time. Brady gets Randy Moss, throws 50 touchdowns. So I don't love that we do this to QBs where all of a sudden they're the only thing that matters when, yes, absolutely, if you don't have a good QB, you're probably not winning a Super Bowl. But if you only have a good QB, I told you, and I think Mahomes is the only exception to this rule. If your QB is a majority of your salary or your team's total salary, you're never going back to a Super Bowl or winning.
Yeah, that's a tough one right there.
Because you have no money for anything else. Brady is the rule. I don't know why more people don't follow him. I'm hoping Purdy understands this and stacks rings like they're chips instead of getting a payday. But
so back to your great point about so I looked up Aikman, right? 91 through 99. Pretty good career. Mm-hmm. Cowboys rocked.
Wait, only 8 years? Really?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
6, 7, 8 years, yes. So in playoffs, right? In 93, he had 5 TDs and 3 interceptions. In 94, he had 4 TDs and 4 interceptions. In 96, he had 1 TD and 4 interceptions. In 98, he had 1 TD and 3 interceptions. So even Aikman, who overall, TDs in playoffs was 23, but he had 17 picks.
Yep.
Oops, wrong team. Right? So, and I'm pretty sure Aikman might be in the Hall of Fame. He's certainly amongst Hall of Fame players, right? Anyway. And I think of him as an elite player. He came from UCLA. Overall, he was 94 and 71, right?
He was inducted in 2006 to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so 165 TDs, but 141 interceptions.
Well, who's our famous example of that?
Brett Favre.
Brett Favre
Third and Brett Favre
held the record for most TDs. I think it got broken by either Peyton or Brady. I don't remember who, and still holds the most interceptions in the history of the league. Yeah. So that's just how it is.
He did play like 150,000 years, but
I mean, still though,
Yeah. Anyway, so we forget about those kinds of things, right? We just live in the moment. And look, I'm okay with a guy who quote unquote calls it as he sees them all the time. Like in my opinion, so a guy I love, of course, is Pat, right? McAfee. He just seems to call it as it is, right? I mean, he is better now at he's got a bunch of people that all, the New England guy and the Detroit guy, and so he can let them do homers and then him be a little bit of Switzerland, right? Which makes him a much better interviewer, in my opinion, right? But and by the way, I don't know that there's anybody that won't go on Pat McAfee's show.
No,
you know what I mean?
Everybody loves him.
Like, I ain't going on that guy's show. He's, I don't get a fair deal there, right? And I never thought I'd say this, but I actually like Shannon Sharp, even though he's a Denver Bronco. Just kills me. Just freaking kills me. I'm telling you.
Real quick, Brett Favre, 508 all-time touchdowns, 336.
That's scary.
336 interceptions in his last year with Minnesota. He played 20 years, by the way. 11 touchdowns, 19 interceptions. This is what's funny to me, though. He, as 366, as we said, holds the record. The closest guy is some dude named Haddle with 268, and that is 68 interceptions
It's Hadel.
less.
It's Hadel. He played for the Rams. What's his first name?
It doesn't say, just his last name.
Yeah, it's.
What's funny, actually, is Testaverde is right behind that guy.
Oh, yeah.
267.
By the way, Heisman Trophy winner.
Johnny Unitas, 250. Oh, and you know what? Let's be fair here. Now, listen, 336, like I said, is 68 more than literally anybody else. But Marino and Manning have 252, 251.
Yep.
So
now,
there's actually two
over to their touchdowns, though, and you're like, ooh, Manning has the most, I'm pretty sure.
Breeze has 243. Elway is 226. So you're going to throw some picks.
If you fling it around a little bit, you're throwing to the wrong team on occasion.
Well, and real quick, QB all-time. I thought it was either.
I think it's Manning.
I think it's Manning.
The year that he lost the Super Bowl to my Seahawks.
And you were nervous.
I couldn't watch. Are you kidding?
Hilarious.
It was stupid.
So actually,
for me,
Brady, 649 touchdowns all time.
That's just insane.
Drew Brees has 571. He's 100, or he's 78 behind him. Peyton Manning is third with 539. Now, again, we agree, by the way, I think the fact Brett Favre threw for 508 in the area he played is really, really impressive because now everybody's throwing the ball. But still.
And you can just stand back there and fling it.
Correct. You're in bubble wrap. But, I think this entire conversation has been to try to establish for people we don't talk about quarterbacks in a remotely accurate or we're very prisoner of the moment. Jordan Love and Stroud beat these teams.
Nobody wants to say, "Oh, Purdy's barely into his second year."
Yeah, we hold him to he's a 8-year veteran, which should be a huge compliment.
Isn't Justin Fields in his second year or third year? Yeah, and come on now.
Jordan
I get it. He's in Chicago and probably on his third coach, but
Jordan Love has actually been in the league longer than Brock Purdy.
Oh yeah, he sat
for 3 years.
For 3 years.
So they're both rookies, but he's in his fourth year. Purdy's in his second year. And by the way, I also don't even mean that as an excuse. Guess what? You're on a Super Bowl caliber team.
Oh, by the way, wait a minute. So how many games did he play last year? He didn't play a full
7.
season. Right, so he played less than half a season.
Correct. No, I agree. And it was
what's his name?
1-1 in those playoffs.
Right.
Trey Lance broke his ankle, and then in the Miami game, which I turned off, Jimmy G broke his foot. Because I was like, oh, we're screwed. This season's over. Then I saw touchdown, and I went, wow, I guess I got to turn this back on.
Who is Brock Purdy? By the way, we both live in Arizona, where Brock Purdy was the number one high school athlete in the state.
Never heard of him. Literally never heard of him before. I don't exactly follow high school or college sports that well, especially not Iowa State. I don't follow that. I follow the Pac-2.
We got a lot of Iowans here. I should have had somebody tell me it was.
I've actually met one of his coaches. He used to coach him, I think it was Chaparral. And what's funny is they say
Chaparral's like an absolute monster.
And what they said is actually he's played essentially the same offense all from high school all the way to the pros, which is partially why they picked him for the Niners. Is they're like, oh, he kind of fits what we do.
Yeah, he kind of knows the playbook. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying Niners and Chiefs. Are you saying Niners?
No, you and Rob are the same because I get it. I only am picking Baltimore because honestly, I can't bet against how just ridiculous that defense looks right now, and I do think Lamar is playing the best he's played in the playoffs with a different coordinator and more weapons. I think his receiver Zay, I think Flowers is a problem. I think the athleticism from the linebackers and their safety, I actually think they match up really well against what Kansas City is going to try to do. They're one of very few teams where they can go man across the board, rush 4, and cause some significant problems. So now, does that mean I think they're going to win? I think they have a good shot. Would I be shocked at all if Mahomes is going to do another Super Bowl? No. 6 years he's gone to 6 straight AFC Championship games. The guy's really, really good. So
when I saw that stat, I was like, okay, apparently I haven't been paying attention because I should have known that one.
I think it's one of those where it goes so fast you actually forget he's been in the league that long. Because it doesn't feel like he's been in the league 7 years. No. Because he sat his first year. So
behind who?
Alex Smith. That's what I said. He took him to a divisional round. I actually feel bad for poor Alex Smith because played really well. Actually was having a career year. Got replaced by Kaepernick. Kaepernick takes him to a Super Bowl. And then literally gets replaced by one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's pretty much Bledsoe 2.0, which is actually why it's really kind of funny too. Wow. Jimmy G was supposed to be the next Brady, got the big contract with the Niners, can't stay healthy, gets replaced by Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy sets the franchise record for yards. So, yeah,
franchise record with a Montana and Steve Young in your background.
Well, and by the way, do you remember who held the record?
I think it was Garcia.
Jeff Garcia, who doesn't get enough credit. He came in the league real late and played pretty damn good.
Well, what's funny is that was also the York era where everybody was just yelling and barking about how bad they were.
Well, my problem with New York's a little bit.
They mismanaged so much.
New York's a little bit too is the and listen, this is why I'm a little harder on San Francisco news media. Is there was a lot being leaked to them about Harbaugh from the Yorks. So don't tell me there aren't specific reporters who essentially are on the payroll of the team.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the two names. They made their whole living, and they were old school San Francisco Chronicle guys. Every time they came on the radio, the San Francisco Chronicle writer Russ Ripley, right? But I just in my brain I can't remember. And I used to listen to, Tom Tolbert and Ralph Barbieri every single day commuting, and loved their show. Some of the stories, if anybody remembers where they did, they combined two sports as funny. And first they started out, everything was sumo high dive, sumo this. And then somebody, they said, okay, no more sumo. Everything's sumo's funny. And a guy calls in and says, okay, synchronized swimming and whack-a-mole. And Russ, as bad as my witness, I had just drank Diet Pepsi in my car, and it took everything, including having it run out my nose, for me not to spew it out the inside of my car. I was laughing so hard. When I finally swallowed it, I was literally, tears are streaming down my face. I'm on 120. I was in Central Valley, California, on 120 connector over to South 99. And it was the best. And they just kept going from there. And I almost had to turn it off. I was laughing so hard, and that was back in the day with Tommy T and Ralph Barbieri, who was the master of what Ralph's. For me, what was famous is one, he always used super big words and the right grammar on everything. So he used to correct people. But he was a curmudgeon. I think he got. There was something happened either on air or in some event where he kind of cooked it and did something and it cost him his job, unfortunately.
Dang.
Tom's still on. He's still on today. He has Steve Young all the time. He has, all the old timers, Brent Young, all those guys all the time. So, and I think they are the broadcast home of the.
There's actually a lot of jokes
City.
about how the Niners, use the media. Hey, if Shanahan doesn't want to talk to reporters, he does an interview on KNBR where he knows the questions that are going to be. Yeah, it's a little.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they are his flagship, so
exactly.
Tom is a good interviewer, but he's not a gotcha guy, right? He's not gonna save that question.
Listen,
right?
the West Coast, there's not really many of them.
Like Philly or New York, those people are just they eat their own.
Literally, Niners were beating the Eagles at halftime. Eagles are 10-1. They're booing their Eagles.
I know.
It's like, well, in fairness,
there's
they kind of saw what was
coming. There's a jail
coming.
in the Eagles stadium. There's a reason. So,
but this is a good note to end on. We're going to have some pretty good games. We're going to have some new software. First of all, this is going in the trash. I got a couple options. XSplits got some good options, but I want to make sure because there's a couple that I can just do straight from the browser. So we're going to try those. So this weekend will be messing with some stuff. We'll see. But I think on that note, we got some good games coming up. Y'all feel free to listen to the national media, but make sure you are entertained and not infuriated because it's not worth it. Laugh, don't cry is my advice to you. Dad, you got any quotes for us today?
So this is not from football. This is Ernie Banks. This is actually a good one. The only way to prove that you're a good sport is to lose. Because I've seen some folks lose and not go out and shake the hand of anybody.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We don't know who those people are.
And I'm telling you, look, I the Lord taught me a long time ago. I never, this was long before I started doing church or any of that. I lost a lot. I don't think I had a winning season in almost any sport I was in, right? You just
gets tough.
You still come back and play because I love to play. Baseball and football is what I played. I didn't, they made me wrestle my freshman year of high school, and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. Actually broke a toe because your those weird shoes you wear for wrestling. I hit it on the. We had wooden benches with steel posts, and I ended up somehow hitting my toe. And then when I put my foot in there, made my toe heel funky. But I hated wrestling, but I loved football, and I would have played center. I didn't care. Just let me play football, right? Baseball, I played catcher, which nobody wants to play catcher.
Nobody wants. Damn good catcher.
He was a phenomenal catcher. He may have been better than his dad, and I played a lot more years than he did. And he could hit better than I could, and I played a lot more years. And nobody ever showed me to hit. I was so bad, Russ. I once struck out 5 times in one game.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think I told you. So you're now going to be a coach, right? You are a coach. So you know what the remedy for me striking out 5 times was? Run 4 laps for every time you struck out. So as I'm running around the field, I'm looking in, and they're doing batting practice. And in my brain, I'm thinking, is this how I'm going to be a better hitter? Anyway.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense.
But losing does create character, right? The same guy that praises his God and does all that, you hope he does that when he loses as well. Otherwise, you kind of got to wonder. Right?
Well, and listen, hey, I'm not a big participation trophy guy, but I'm actually pretty glad the league that I'm helping coach for 7-8-year-olds, we're not probably keeping score. And I'll tell the kids, listen, you know why? Because right now you need the fundamentals before you worry about winning.
Yeah.
You need to know how to play before you worry about what the score is. You need to know positions. So I'm gonna have a great time. Honestly, it's keeping me up at night because I'm like,
so you
do these drills.
One of the first. Yeah, you're gonna. Yeah. So the first thing you'll realize is one of those kids is good at math, and he's keeping score.
Which that's fine.
You need to. No. You need to. Hey, you're like, okay, if you want to keep score, that's fine. Just don't say anything to anybody else. That's fine for you.
What I'll tell that kid is like, listen, you know what I really want you to keep track of? How your teammates are doing.
Yeah.
I don't care. You could have 20 touchdowns, buddy. How are your teammates doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Because guess what? They're the reason you're getting touchdowns.
Exactly.
So my whole goal, and I'm going to tell the kids this, there's going to be 2 goals. One, we're going to learn our fundamentals, and 2, we're going to have fun. Because if you're not having fun, what are we doing?
You won't ever want to play. Exactly. And it's flag. I don't know if you mentioned that. There.
No, it is, and that's I like that too. I think that's good because
it's a good taste right there.
You've coached kids who don't want to tackle, so I don't have to worry about that part. It's purely, listen, I think we only have like 10 total kids. It's going to be 4-on-4, and I'm going to tell them like we're going to rotate through in practice because if you want to be a good quarterback, you better know what your wide receivers are doing. If you want to be a good defender, you better know what the quarterback's job is. So we're gonna. My goal is to get them to the point where they know the positions.
Kids usually aren't the problem.
Thankfully, thankfully, I'm playing coaching for a Christian league, so I got some backup if parents try to be stupid.
You get lots of opportunities to communicate with parents, and you might get a lot of help, and you might get a lot of people that just want to help.
To shout them out a little bit, I sent snack list, and we only have 6 games. I got every day but 2 filled up. I'm getting some really good feedback.
And don't they have rules of the road for parents and all that kind of stuff?
I'm sure.
You get to send out. Yeah. That's good. Hey, look, it's got to be better than tackle. And by the way, the folks in Fountain Hills, I had nothing but, it was frustrating for me only as the guy who wanted them to do well, not for me. I could care less about, me, what I wanted. It's much more fun to win.
Oh yeah.
And we were definitely keeping score because the other team was keeping score. So, but there were some parents that were a little frustrated by the whole thing. So, and I almost wanted to say, hey, come on out, help us out.
No, no, I don't want you helping me.
Tackling drills over there. Get those guys to actually tackle somebody. Let's see what happens.
Well, that's the thing too. And I don't want to take too much. We're at hour 40,
yep.
So we want to. Hey, it's okay.
Let's see with technical difficulties.
No kidding. But the thing with tackling to really break through is they got to get either hit someone once and go, oh, I'm not dead. Okay. It's that fear, of pain. It's like, guys, you tackle right or you protect yourself right, you're gonna be okay. It's when you play scared that you get hurt. So
yes.
I was a lot like you. I like inflicting punishment, and that's not always something. That's hard. That's hard to.
5th and 6th graders, that's not really in their repertoire.
Well, listen, I grew up with a much smaller younger brother, and I was told a lot, stop hurting him. So, it's a little tough to translate to. I'm allowed to hurt people, within the rules, kind of thing, not intentional or anything like that.
It is also why we pelted this guy with hockey pucks.
Oh, I loved that. That was so much fun. Anyway,
sorry. All right, gang.
We can rabbit trail for hours, but listen.
Well, hey, next week ought to be interesting.
Right? Yeah, and listen, you know what? Obviously, listen, I want my Niners to win, but something I was taught a long time ago that I've really tried to keep is, listen, whether win or lose, my life is going to move on. I have my wonderful children. I have my wife. I have a wonderful job. So win or lose, I'll be on here. And if Baltimore kicks their doors, Detroit, I'm going to give them all their flowers. I'll be rooting for them in the Super Bowl. Life's bigger than football. So, my world does not end next weekend. So
yes, this is not our job.
No, even if it was, that's the part. There was there was someone I follow on Twitter who I really like, who I thought was a better analyst in terms of being impartial. I've discovered he's not. Who basically said, "Hey, the better team lost when the Packers didn't beat the Niners," and I was like, "Well, it's a little disappointing." Mention the refs too, and I hate that. I don't like talking refs because I feel like that's it. At the end of the day, that's an excuse.
And by the way, that was one of the. It seemed like better officiated games.
Listen, if you slow a game down frame by frame, you're going to make yourself angrier and angrier. So don't do that. Yeah. That's a recipe for disaster.
Look, we're human, right? I mean, if you've ever tried to be any semblance of a referee in any sport, it's. Man.
It's a lot like a police officer. You're never happy to see them. So understand that job. And by the way, we'll talk about the offseason. We're still going to hold them accountable. We're going to hold the league accountable because you still have a job to do. But let's not forget there is also a person who has to go home to their family. The kicker for Buffalo deactivated all of his social media because he's probably getting death threats. And if you're sending death threats, you need to go for a walk. You need to calm down, because that's real dumb. Anyway,
all right, man.
Appreciate you coming on, Dad. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Stay safe. Enjoy the games. Don't jump out of box sweets. I don't know if you saw that. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, guys.
All right.
Peace out.
Love you, son. Talk to you guys later.
All right, bye.